нагоди 90-х роковин Голодомору мережа нащадків Голодомору та Світова координаційна виховно-освітня рада при СКУ створили проект усних розповідей для учнів 8-12 класів. Ми пам'ятаємо. Сьогодні пропонуємо 4-те інтерв'ю з цієї серії. Учень та член СУМу Петро Волошин розмовляв із нащадком жертв Голодомору Вірою Гугліотою.
Petro Voloshyn, student of the American Ukrainian Youth Association, named after Dmytro Vitovsky. The interview with Holodomor descendant Vira Gugliotta.
What does Holodomor mean to you?
Well, Holodomor is a time in Ukraine that a lot of people died, a lot of my relatives died because the Russians, the Bolsheviks, the Soviets, call them whatever you want, took their food because they wanted to collectivize the farms. It was a sad time in Ukraine, a genocide.
Can you tell me about your relatives?
Well, actually, both my parents are from the Poltavsky Oblast. My mother lived in Malinivka. They kind of were on the wealthy side, and they had a mlyn, a flour mill. And my grandfather was the only one who knew how to work it. And that's kind of why they survived, because when they would grind the seed into flour, they used to be able to go there and gather the remnants that were under the wheels. And that's what saved them. If they didn't have that, they would have never survived. There was an incident where the people, the Bolsheviks, came to my grandmother in my mother's house. My mother's 5, my teta Vira was 3 years old, and babusia Motrya just stood there praying, molilася, because she had hidden some muka, some flour, in a baksa. And that was the last of it. If they took that, they were doomed. My mother was following these soldiers around the house and asking them, "Що ви шукаєте? Що ви хочете?" And then finally she looked at them and she goes, "Чи ви маєте кусок хліба? Ви такі голодні." The villager, the one who actually lived in that Malinivka, he was with them also. And he found the flour. Means знайшов ту муку. But he found it. So he closed it. And моя бабуся там стоїть і молиться. And he goes to the soldiers. Хлопці, тут нічого нема. Ідемо. And he kicked them out of the house. But they still searched all around the house with залізні палки, looking for people who buried food in the ground. That was my mother's side of the family. My father's side of the family lived in the Kozatsky village of Petrivці. Вони також мали багато землі. They had a lot of land. Did Nikofy wouldn't give a piece of land up. He would not let them be collectivized. No matter how much land they took from him, no matter what they took from him, he was not going to give anything up. They hid their food in Yamin, but they didn't hide it just around the house, because anyone who hid it around the house, they got wise. The Bolsheviki got wise and would have these patike zalizny sticks looking for the meat, for the food, because they said that if the zemlya yamyaka is soft, that means there's food hidden. My family hid their food by the river because they weren't far from the river, and so they hid it there, and they didn't think of looking there. My family hid it in the family well. They found that too. It was hard, but because they hid their food by the river, they survived. My didus Grigori had a sister and 2 brothers. His sister was in the village of Povelkivshchina, Skhidna Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine. That's where my babusia is from. Now, my babusia Lukia's family, gone. Nobody survived. Nobody survived. She's the only one, as far as we know, that survived Holodomor.
Are any of them still alive?
My grandparents were born in 1901, so of course they're not alive. And I don't believe any of my grandfather's brothers are alive. One was killed during World War II. We think his youngest brother, Mykola, he did stay in Ukraine after World War II. But my grandfather and his family emigrated to America.
Right after the Holodomor or World
No.
War II?
After World War II. They had to fight during Holodomor, and the years afterwards were very difficult because after Holodomor, my grandfather was taken to Siberia. He was taken right after my youngest uncle Vasil was born in 36. So she had a baby and a 2-year-old and an 11-year-old to raise all by herself.
Why was he taken to Siberia?
Well, there were several reasons. One was because the NKVD was looking for him because he owned land and he wouldn't go with the collectivization farmed. And he also was in the army earlier. He didn't want to be in the Russian army, so he just left.
How did they leave?
He escaped to Odessa and he was there for several years. And then when he thought it was safe that they weren't going to look for him anymore, then he came back to Petrivci.
How did you learn about all this?
I have a uncle, Dядя Alexei. Dядя Alexei decided it was very important to write the history of the Konovals. And so he wrote a memoir, and I'm kind of reading through it to find out what happened. Now, Dядя Alexei is 90 years old. He lives in Florida now.
What was your reaction when you first read it?
I kind of knew some of it, but what really, I guess you could say, impressed and shocked me was Didus Hrigori's youngest brother, Mykola. He went to the university in 1933. And as a university student, he was forging kartochke so that people could get chleb. Even though they weren't supposed to have these kartochke, he was forging them so they could get it. He got arrested, was sentenced to jail for 3 years in Ukraine, escaped. None of my family likes jail. They always try to run away. And then he was waiting for his forged papers for a different identity, and he got arrested again. This time they sentenced him to Kazakhstan for 6 years. I never remember really learning about Holodomor in school. It was more later, thereafter. And when I got married, my husband went back to the school and he had to write a paper for school. And I showed him the book on Holodomor. So he wrote his paper on Holodomor. And we were trying to get more people to know about it at that point.
Do you think like the genocide right now in Ukraine is like similar to the genocide of Holodomor?
Yes, I do, because they were trying to break the Ukrainian people during Holodomor. They wanted them to do what they wanted, be good Soviet citizens. Putin wants everybody to be Russian. He's telling people, oh, вони росіяни, вони не мають свою культуру. That's not true. Ми маємо свою культуру. Якби ми не мали свою культуру, ми б так не воювали проти них.